Welcome back. South African Airways has announced several measures that it will implement in its restructuring plans, including scrapping its domestic routes apart from Johannesburg and Cape Town. The joint business rescue practitioners of South African Airways also announced further initiatives to support the airline's transformation into a sustainable and profitable business. A comprehensive restructuring program will culminate in a business rescue plan and then be presented to creditors for approval. Meanwhile, the Johannesburg High Court has ordered SA Express to be placed under business rescue. To get reaction now, we're joined in the studio by Phakamile Hlubi-Majola, who's to my right. She's spokesperson for Numsa and Christopher Shabangu, is Deputy President of the South African Cabin Crew Association. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So let's just start with SAA. I believe that there was a meeting being held in Kempton Park to discuss this latest statement with the business rescue practitioners. What is your sense?
Well, first and foremost, we are quite shocked and dismayed by the decision to cancel so many routes. I mean, this is going to have a devastating impact on the workforce. It's really, what they've done today is, we just can't express how shocked we are. But what I think worsened the situation is that as we were actually engaging on this issue, they went and issued a statement to the media to show you that there was no consultation with Labour. They had made the decision. And in our view, there's no rationale for this decision, particularly when you tie it in with the fact that on Tuesday, they also made the announcement that they were going to wanted to drastically reduce the workforce by far more than the 944 workers which they had initially thought would be retrenched. To date, we don't have a business rescue plan. So how do they justify why they need to take such decisions? We are deeply suspicious of what they're doing, and it is our view, in fact, that what they are actually doing is implementing SAA management's original plan, the plan that sparked the strike in the first place, which was to massively reduce South African Airways, retrench as many people as possible, and not actually deal with the fundamental cost drivers which have brought SAA to the brink of collapse. So
we'll talk about the cost drivers in just a moment, but I want to understand what you're saying, that you are literally in a meeting negotiating how all of this will be outlined and implemented when the business rescue practitioners decided to say, this is what we're doing.
Absolutely, and they issued a statement to the media before we were we'd even completed the discussions.
So the business rescue practitioners are saying they're doing all they can to not only safeguard jobs, but to limit the impact of the job losses. I'd imagine after your statement, you're saying that that is insincere.
Absolutely not. I mean, if that was the case, the very first thing they should have done was to intervene on the 25 billion rand per year corrupt procurement spend. They haven't lifted a finger to deal with that, and as business rescue practitioners, in terms of the law, they have the power to do that.
Mr. Shabalala, just looking at especially the scrapping of domestic routes, so do you think that the cabin crew especially, are they going to be the most affected by this, or which other category of staff is going to be badly impacted by this decision?
Look, it's not going to be the cabin crew only. This is not about the cabin crew, it's about all the workforce at SAA that's going to be affected. Look at Durban, for example. They've cut Durban. Durban is, a lot of people in Durban are going to be cut, jobs there are going to be affected directly. East London, PE are going to be affected directly. But that's not the biggest issue we have. The biggest issue we have here is that the business rescue practitioners were supposed to be coming up with a plan to save the airline. So they're supposed to be using experts to save the airline. None of them were used. The business plan that you have, as Phakamile has just said now, it's the plan that SAA had before. So our suspicions are justified. Remember, we've been coming to, on air saying so many times that we do not trust how the business practitioners were chosen. We do not trust that process. We actually went on and demanded certain people to be involved. So therefore...
So what really goes on in the meetings to chart forward the way? Because they're saying that they're doing all of this it's business rescue, right? Basically bankruptcy protection. They're saying that they are doing this in order to make sure that the airline is financially viable and sustainable.
Look, It's not. Let me just put it this way: we never have discussions as to what needs to happen next, as with Labour. They don't have those discussions. Discussions we have is them coming to tell us that this is now going to happen, which it shouldn't be that way. We should be properly consulted, and the experts are supposed to be properly consulted because they would know what to do next. The example of what I'm trying to say to you right now is, how do you cut Durban? Completely cut
This
Durban.
was a question, interestingly enough, I was asking my colleague. I said, Cape Town is obviously one of the most, revenue producing, but Durban certainly is one of the, and it's a shorter flight, so it means you can have as many flights going back and forth.
Exactly. So actually, out of the 3 that they've cut, let me just, now this is what we get. They're going to be having about 16 aircrafts left behind. Some of them obviously are going to go probably to Mango. And again, we're not consulting on all of those things. It's stuff that we're getting. So what we are saying as Labour, and SACCA and Numsa, that's what we're saying. We are aware that this restructuring may affect jobs. We know that. But the issue is we need to be properly consulted. The business rescue practitioners need to play their role without the interference of the board or even of the shareholder. They need to be independent in that, and we believe, we suspect they're not independent. If they were independent, they would be able. They would have known. We would have told them, or even from the experts.
Okay. So you both are saying that you remain very suspicious of this, and I won't ask what the source of your suspicion is, but what do you think ultimately they're trying to do? Because, I mean, there's been a lot of murmurings about ultimately trying to break down the airline so much that there's forced privatization. Are you still that cynical about it? But more importantly, what happens next if are you crippling the airline with some of these measures?
First and foremost, as unions, we, and particularly Numsa and SACCA, we've been the only ones driving an agenda to save the airline. Even when we went on strike, the demands that we made, they were in relation to changes in the way management has been doing things. One of the things that we secured was something called a training layoff scheme. And it's a tool, mechanism designed to save the airline millions in wages.
How would that work specifically?
How it works is that, in this case, SAA has said it needs to retrench at least 944 workers. So those workers would go on training for a minimum period of 6 months. Their salaries would be paid for by the SETA and not by South African Airways. We secured this in the wage talks last year. It's an avenue for them to implement immediately. We found out in the meeting on Tuesday that South African Airways management unilaterally withdrew that proposal without consulting Labour, and it actually confirms in our minds that this has got absolutely nothing to do with trying to alleviate the financial burden. It's got everything to do with radically reducing the labor at SAA, and in our view, it does seem as if that this entire plan is designed to please a particular business partner that we don't know of. There's obviously a plan that they've agreed to, which we don't know anything about, and they expect us as Labour to endorse this, and we refuse.
So there's this, and coupled with the announcement, the High Court order that SA Express itself go under business rescue. Is this going to make things work, especially in the aviation industry for workers?
I think on the SAA Express situation, you have to see the similarities between South African Airways Express and SAA. SAA Express has actually, many members of the board of SAA are on SA Express board. So we should not be surprised that that SA Express is in financial crisis, that it now faces business rescue, because the same people who destroyed SAA are controlling the strings on that side.
And Mr. Shabangu, Numsa did note that they will, especially when it comes to procurement, this is the final question. We know that this is also going to be the subject of the State Capture Commission tomorrow. What comes out of there? Is it going to lay bare precisely what is happening now at SA and SA Express? How a business rescue actually could have been averted and can still be averted?
We hope so. But at the end of the day, the story of SAA and how corrupt, how the body is corrupt at SAA has been there for a long time. Tomorrow, I don't know if it's going to bring any new information, but it may bring some information that may assist. We don't know. But as my colleague has just said now, Phakamile, at South African Express, it's the same situation we're facing. The only difference that we have with Express is that it is now a court-ordered business rescue, which hopefully is going to work differently, we hope. But at the end of the day, the issue of South African Airways and South African Express are the same. It is corruption that has brought those airlines into where they are today.
All right, and unfortunately, that's where we leave it with you both. Phakamile Hlubi-Majola, spokesperson for Numsa, and Zazi Sibanyoni. Mukami, apologies for that. That was who was supposed to join us earlier on, but from SACCA is Mr. Shabangu. That's what the picture is on that issue. By the way, we did invite the business rescue practitioners to come and speak to us about their plans and just how far they will go before they print the proposal by the end of February.